Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of um, CG Taco Bell, our pending name for our podcast series. Um, so, I'm Marco, and I'm joined again, as always, by TJ and Andrew. And tonight we'll be talking about the 3D learning curve, um, how steep it is, and how we can um, crush it as quickly as possible and free up more time for ourselves to develop in a holistic way as artists and designers. Um, okay, so yeah, basically, I think a recurring issue is among people who, whether starting out or have been doing this for a while, is with 3D. There's always something new to learn. There's always some new plugin uh, that can affect the time or the quality it would take to create output. There's always something that the industry adopts, and so everybody else has to adopt. At least that's a super general way of putting it, but it is a thing, and in having to spend all of that time learning all of these software tricks, it can be really difficult to kind of also develop yourself in the fundamental sense, or at least that's the opinion that we're gonna play around with today. So maybe we can start with your experiences learning 3D. Like what was it like for you? Um, how much time did you spend? Having to, like, how did you go about learning 3D, and yeah, what was it like? So yeah, go ahead. Any of you who wanna take the mic?
hmm Yeah, I remember that I started playing around with 3D in computer graphics my around my high. It wasn't high school. Yeah, probably first encounters it was maybe high school, but later in college it was we even had an official kind of a course, introductory course to 3ds Max, but this was really at that time at our academy there was it was very poor quality, so just like the basics of the basic, and that was my first encounter with 3ds Max, and I didn't touch it for a long time since then. But I also played around with different tools like SketchUp then, or because it was really easy, like accessible. And then I came across Blender around that time, so I used that for really simple stuff for my student projects. And at that time, there was not that much of learning material online that was available, that is available nowadays. It's really a growing industry sort of its own, like the learning resources, and they are so much more available right now than they were at the time. It was around, I think, 2005 or so, 2005 6, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my case, it was similar. I started to learn 3ds Max. I started to play around with it when it was not called Max yet. I think it was on some floppy disks, and there was completely no information about it. So I had to. There was no internet, so I had to figure it out myself, and it was much simpler program than today. I mean, the programs today, and also the effects. I mean, there was much less to learn. with the software today. And then I dropped it in high school. I started to do some other stuff. So I started to study architecture, and it was needed for architectural visualization. So I went back to the 3ds Max, and actually it was it didn't change so much for like 8 years or 10 years. And yeah, but there was a lot more to do in this program. So for example, when I started learning, like really started to work on this program, there was Mental Ray render engine, and just V-Ray just appeared like several years before. So it was not easy. The features which I remembered and the approach to 3D, general 3D, from these times of having a 80 computer or 386 computer, it was the same, but there was a lot more to learn. So, and I was warned when I started to learning it. I was warned that it has a very flat learning curve. So, and I didn't really believe it, because I thought that this is going to be the same as any other skills, but it was true. I mean, it's when you learn 3D, you need to attack several different fields, which are completely, especially at first, which are completely detached from each other. So modeling is one thing, texturing and creating shaders is second thing, and lighting and rendering, you can put it together, and the composition and painting post-production is the third thing. So basically, if you want to learn, for example, let's say you are only interested about sculpting in brush, so you are, let's say, you are learning one skill, one way of thinking. But if you are this generalist guy, or you want to learn 3D in general, and I didn't even mention animation or other stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to drop in animation. That's another kind of field, or
rigging and animation. So even if you are just doing some art or architectural visualization or whatever, you have to learn at least two completely different fields of skills. So this is why it takes so long, I think, because it's not easy. And it's for example, I remember when I learned 3ds Max, I would do tutorials. I would do just one tutorial after another to learn modeling. So I just decided that the more tutorials I do, the better skill I have. So I modeled anything from a tutorial to just get accustomed with the tools. And I remember at first it was very difficult, because I would forget the skills I learned when it comes to modeling and 3ds Max interface, like week after I learned them. I had to go back to some of the tutorials several times, and to really start to use these tools naturally. Maybe because there was this non-really graphic interface, because if you are a visual person, you would probably prefer icons with some visual representation of what this option is doing, rather than like in 3ds Max, the text description, like extrude, detach, all that stuff. There are not many icons there. But I also noticed that at some point I started teaching people, gave them like lessons of architectural visualization, and they would start from scratch. They didn't know 3ds Max at all, and they had the same problem. So for example, I I had a countless guys who already finished some courses, so they should know something. Well, they didn't. They said that they forgot everything when it comes to 3ds Max interface. So I don't know why. This is very strange, because I have never had such a problem with other programs, other skills. And now, when, for example, I know 3ds Max very well, and for example, I'm learning Cinema 4D. It's very easy to learn Cinema 4D or other software once you know one 3D program very well. I mean, it goes very fast. Yeah.
It's kind of like get the principles, sort of.
Yes,
you
exactly.
kind of know what things are supposed to be.
Yes, exactly. I mean, all those programs basically are doing the same. They have the same tools, more or less. They are just there's just a different interface, some differences, but the learning of another 3D programs, once you know one of them, it goes very fast. I was surprised, because I remember on forums, on 3D forums, some guys encouraged other people to learn more than one 3D program, and I was very much against it, because okay, so I'm not going to invest so much time into learning another program, and it looks like I was wrong. It's not. It's going really fast. But at first, I remember it was very frustrating, and I couldn't understand it. Why I don't remember how or where this function is located, or how it works, or what should I use in this particular moment, when I actually remember I did a tutorial about it. I did it. So yeah, I think maybe because there's a lot of those tools, and maybe because for example, hard surface modeling, it's I study architecture, so I had some experience in like 3D thinking and designing and drawing, imagining thing in 3D, but maybe it was not very natural, at least in 3ds Max, not natural thinking, maybe for me, but I also noticed other people had the problem as well, and they always also were students of architecture or interior design or any other similar areas. So it was like two steps ahead, one step back, 2 steps ahead, one step back. And at some point I learned all these tools, just like, okay, so I know I can do all this stuff in several ways. I know all these tools. But at first it was very, very tough, and it was only modeling part. And then you have texturing, and you have no idea that there is something like Fresnel reflection, and you create shaders, and only after some time you realize that this kind of stuff is happening on the materials around you all the time. So this is like learning several different fields of design or creation, and I think this is why it takes so much. It takes more time than just drawing, or just, I don't know, just sculpting or whatever.
Yeah, I guess this thing that you said about people forgetting what they learned in 3ds Max, or like the advanced DCCs, they have so many options, and that's probably like one of the key features that provided SketchUp with such a success. Like it was a tool created to make 3D simple, like accessible to everyone. Yeah, and it was really kind of like super intuitive. It was limited also to some extent, and yeah, like to up to this day, that people are cursing the 3D models created by SketchUp and stuff like that. So it had its disadvantages, but then it kind of allowed people to skip that daunting process of understanding 3D on the deeper level, and yeah, it's kind of I think it's relatable to maybe through 3D programming, something to computer programming. Like if you get the principles, what it's all about, then learning a specific like language, like programming language or I don't know, framework. It's just a question of learning some techniques, but the meat is stays the same, like sort of the core issue. You need to solve the problems with algorithms and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So you need to get the meat of 3D, get a grasp on what it's all about, creating 3D meshes and shading them and lighting and
yeah. I just realized it's a little similar to learning a foreign language. So when you learning your first foreign language is very hard. It takes a lot of time. But learning the second one is once you know one, especially from if this is not completely something completely different, it goes faster. You know what you will have to learn on
Yeah,
the way,
yeah.
and
Like Latin-based languages, you see patterns, right?
yes, yes, and even I haven't learned like Chinese or something like that, but I know what would wait for me to when I will have to learn. I know the drill. So
Yeah,
so it's like that. So yeah. So but when it comes to 3D, I remember I also learned Blender at the 5th year of architecture. I had a Blender course, which was I don't know who had this idea to teach people how to make visualizations at the end of the 5th year, because everybody who really wanted to learn it already had the skill. And I learned Blender, and it was very tough for me. It has a completely different interface, like the basics. It was like all the other software is much more like mirrored, like from 3ds Max, and the Blender was tough. But maybe this is not on the topic. But I remember it was kind of
yeah. But
that
things have
certainly
changed since then.
certainly was the case in the earlier versions. Yeah,
Yeah, and then again, I've had the opposite kind of way, like Blender really being my first tool, diving deep into 3D world, and yeah, so I'm the kind of like Blender guy entering the 3D world, and then when I had to learn 3ds Max, I had really the same
yeah.
kind of impression that it seems like it's doing the same thing, but it's so different, and its UI seems such unfamiliar to me, so, because I was used to the Blender way, sort of.
Yes, I can imagine. But for example, skipping from 3ds Max to Cinema or Maya was very easy. I mean, it's and by the way, I actually started learning. We had a here on GarageBand.net. All the Wranglers had a courses of some software. For example, Maya. We
oh
had
yeah,
to we had to go through that, and
like
I
learning
I
next gen.
Yes. And I remember when I started to learn Maya, I only knew 3ds Max. So I was so much used to its limitations that I didn't even see them. So when I started to work in Maya, which I in general I don't like Maya, but I noticed, oh my God, this is I'm doing this stuff in 3ds Max this way all the time because there is just no option to do it another way, a simple option. I don't even remember the specific ones, but I remember in Maya you can customize a lot of your interface, and yeah, that kind of opened my eyes on 3ds Max. That wow, this is I'm I'm using some workarounds because there is just not some snap I don't know, snap option in some place, which should be there, and it's very easy. It's not something complicated, but it's not there, and yeah. So actually, this is maybe a topic like one step evolved, which a lot of people. I mean, sometimes people mention it on CG social media to learn more than one 3D software, because it's opening eyes a lot to the 3D itself. That you're not specialist on only one software. You just get it in general. So yeah, but at first it was tough. And by the way, 3ds Max, I really hated the text interface, but I'm aware that this is very old program. So I have an impression that Maya has a very visual interface when it comes to icons. So I think this was like the Maya, I think, appeared on the market when everything went more visual in computers, and because they were stronger, and it was like step forward. I don't know if it would take me faster to learn. I think it would. I think it would. I didn't have a very bad English when I learned it, but really checking the meaning of options in dictionary is not the best way to learn them. When you do some 3D or graphic design, Maya or other software was much better. But I started from 3ds Max, and it stayed that way. And by the way,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, a lot of people, when I ask which software you are using and why, the answer is in most cases, well, because that was the first one I started to learn. This is why I'm using it. There's not a lot of people asking first. You have no idea completely what you are going to do when you start. When you are at the level of not knowing which program to learn, you have no idea completely what's waiting for you. So usually it's like, I guess Lightwave guys are just guys who learned Lightwave at some point, and 3ds Max as well. So cinema for the I think a lot of people just stay with their software.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true, and I think for good reason, right? Because it takes a lot of time to. You might know the meat of it, as DJ put it, but you'd still have to learn like the counterpart of everything, and it also depends on how much attention the developers behind a particular software put into how intuitive the experience would be. But one thing for sure is that today, I think, well, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for 3ds Max or Maya, but um, I'm willing to bet that the versions of, like now that everyone's at like their 2020 release, like anyone who's been working with, let's say, the 2015 release would be surprised at how much more streamlined everything is. I mean, I can at least say that for Blender, and it went a long way in terms of usability, like from the get go. But that's an interesting point. Like the the learning curve now, like people are actively making sure that the learning curve uh, is um, is managed better. And, like the developers are trying to make it easier to learn, easier
Yes,
to
it's true.
migrate, and now you have like the online community really is proactive in educating everyone. So uh, now I think people who wanna take up 3D might have less of a difficult time, but then um,
Mhm.
it's still sort of the skill, like just for like being sort of that jack of all trades like if you wanted to be a modeler, like it's not as simple as, okay, but now I know that, this is how I would, like, I have all of the icons before me that tell me what I can do to this cube. But then
Mm-hmm.
you'd still have to learn about the nuances of topology, and then texturing. You'd have to learn about like how all of the surface materials behave, like in the physical world, to light, or like in animation, like all the, the principles of animation, and all of that, like all each uh, each part of the pipeline has its own, um like, it's a discipline that has like that has so much in store for anyone trying to master it. So
Yeah. So
yeah, how do you? Mhm.
finally people specialize, right? I mean, finally
Yeah,
people either specialize or organize work of other people, just as some leaders. And maybe, I mean, generalist is also a specialization in a way, but finally, even without animation, it's a lot to learn. It's
Yes, I think I've heard a nice
yeah,
interview about this from one of the bosses of a high-end post production studio in Poland. He was speaking about generally the VFX and post production industry, and about like different different skill sets, and how people in Poland relate to other markets, like and stuff like that. And he mentioned something about like that he said he really appreciates that, like people who get this kind of like a generalist approach of the wide like 3D skill set. That's how he learned, sort of, and probably many people involved in 3D for a longer period. But then once you get the grasp of all the aspects, you will not master all of them, but generally get a kind of a grip on things, how things go, and then you are able to really decide what your point of interest is, and what you can specialize in, what you can be best at.
yeah. So,
that's
by,
true.
by the
Because
way, I
when you start, you don't really know what specific like things are really.
yeah,
You just have a vague idea of
yeah,
what it really is to model, what it really is to be, like to light, to make post production as well. That's yeah.
Yeah,
unless you know, I mean, this is also changing. For example, my brother, he's a very good drawing person. He draws great, and I asked him if he would like to try 3D, and said, no, I'm not a very technical person. I would like to get into this, all those very polygons, all that stuff. I don't want to. So if you don't, if you know that you don't like this kind of stuff, then maybe you know that you will not go into 3D.
Yeah,
But
might
the,
but you might at least try sculpting, which is kind of like
yeah,
an intuitive part in 3D.
yes, and in general, it was such a filter years ago that really people who like to figure out more or less technical stuff. It's not so much technical. It's like 3D stuff. People who like to do this on their own went into that business, and there was a huge filter. My impression was that, I mean, on CG forums, there were not a lot of women and a lot of guys who talk about this, like, like guys approach to cars or stuff like that,
Yeah,
like
yeah, or
tweaking.
military stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And now it changed because yes, as you said, that developers think more about the like about the making the user interface and learning curve possible to
mhm,
learn by small steps. For example, V-Ray at some point introduced the completely different interface to V-Ray for SketchUp, which is much more easier to understand. Also, those levels, beginner, advanced, expert in rendering options. It wasn't there before. It was a lot of options, not much of information online, not much tutorials, and it was like a dark black magic. People who work in this field, and they were good. Of course, there were a lot of artists, but I noticed when that it all started to change, some people were even disappointed because they invested so much time into mastering the skills, and maybe they even based their position in the industry on the fact that they have the skills that are so difficult to gain. And now you basically, there's like a huge flood of people who don't have to go through that way. They have everything online in fantastic tutorials. There's the last thing in ArchiVis which was not really covered. It was kind of like a little mystery of every artist was post-production. There was not many cool tutorials about post-production, painting, all that stuff. And now it's also changed. And there was a flood of people just go in instantly. In 1 year or 2 year, they show fantastic works or very good works. Of course, let's say they choose some simpler topics. And I've seen like an outrage of all veterans who couldn't believe that there's a person who learns these tools for 2 years, and well, it looks like this guy is better than you after 20 years because he has a talent, and there's no like there are no so many obstacles on the way. It's not so difficult to learn it, and maybe you base that on your the fact that you were all close in this society, like like magicians in their towers and keeping their secrets, and there are no secrets right now, so a lot of people join. I think it's going to go that way. For example, one of the things that I think is going to change a lot is real-time rendering. I mean, for example, the faster the computers are, the faster you can, for example, do tests of materials. And it was a drag, and it costed a lot of clever thinking and commitment to understand behavior of some materials. And then computers get faster, so you can say, okay, so now you made those tests faster. You check those different settings or different options faster. But at some point, it's not only a quantity thing that it's faster. It's a quality. At some point, if you can sit down and in real time tweak materials and see what's going to happen with them without waiting, without setting rows of tests, then a lot of people will get into that who were kept away because of this way of testing and learning. If there are a lot of people who can have a like brain thinking in material way, this is their talent, and if they can sit down and see that this is all happening in real time, there will be a lot of people coming who didn't want to, who were like I don't know the word, like pushed away by the workflow and the way you're learning. So yeah, so
the technicality of it, even.
Yes. I mean, it's in general, it's changing a lot. I mean, it's really changing the way you think. when years ago you had to spend a lot of time testing some stuff, and now you can spend much less time, it's not even that you learn faster. You just start thinking different way. You started, for example, there's a difference between designing a material and like running those tests and checking and okay, I'm not sure if this is going to work this way or another, and playing around and tweaking something like which is reacting in real time. It's like you are using a kind of different part of your brain. And
but that might for me, like seeing this that way, that it's happening. Well, there is of course this veterans regret that we know so much about the technicalities, what's going on behind, like under the hood, sort of. And right now it's the interfaces are getting more intuitive. Like recently, the texturing software is awesome, appearing. Tools that allow you to mix your materials, tweak materials live, and the rendering is happening while you're working. And but then again, when you have the option to change everything, like with one button or something like that, the scenes are still complex. The whole setup, it comes down more to the design decisions right now. And it's very good that the tools are stopping to become to be the obstacle, because the tools are really the tools, the 3D tools, the programs, the computers and stuff. These are tools to let you do the work really. And so it seems like kind of the times that we were learning 3D, it was the kind of like the ancient times where you had to use the primitive tools really. That you had to find clever ways to make the tools do what you really want them to do. And right now it's like the tools are really maturing, so that you can focus really on the outcome that you want to achieve. And it's a whole different story, like a whole wide area, and whole like skill set or way of thinking that you have to learn and learn to observe to make the right decisions, because it's art. So art is hard by its own, sort of, I think. And it's good that you can like spend more focus on more of your creativity on the thing that produces the outcome that is really it's for some people it's nice to build your own radio and stuff, and it's very satisfying probably to make your own machine, make it work. But the whole purpose of making the radio is not making the radio, but listening to the radio, sort of. That's the purpose of making a radio in the first place. So the process of making the machine and connecting the wires and stuff, it's a nice thing to know, and probably satisfactory for the maker. But generally the radio is to be listened to, and that's with 3D as well. It's to produce images.
These tools are means to an end, basically. But
they're coming for us. They're coming for us.
This is mine.
We have to shut down this.
Old guys from the 3D.
But that's actually
the 3D veteran police.
Yeah. No, but then like I think one other interesting thing is because like I know a lot of people, for example, meaning at least it would be fair to say that a lot of people I've interacted with also come from, like, for example, like a bunch of like fine artists, for example, would also kind of they also had the same sentiments as like what you were saying, Andrew, about how your brother like maybe didn't even really see the need to learn it because like he already had command over his medium. Like
Mhm.
he could visualize really well already with I don't know, a pencil or ink or paint.
Mhm.
And like so then like he has his radio, like he can listen to his radio. Like there's like why reinvent the wheel, right? And admittedly, like I think that there's really like there are two types of people, or well maybe there are more, but let's say two, like there are two there are two types of people among many who would think about entering 3D, and there are those who um are very technical, I think, but then there are also those who are very expressive and either maybe never really connected with like a traditional medium, or just wanted to kind of explore like something else, and that kind of puts 3D at a sort of, I guess this whole conversation has been more um it's probably more detrimental to the people who are looking to express themselves through some medium, and then they find themselves kind of uh, disappointed in in having to spend so much time learning all the technical stuff just to be able to do something, and then like and then as the but the future generations will always have easier access uh, to the tool and be able to wield the tool in a much faster, more intuitive way. But then I think one good thing about 3D in general is that um, you there you sort of kind of really immerse yourself in the science of assuming like you go through the whole pipeline, like you kind of also immerse yourself in the science of you could, I don't know, I mean it might, like, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say optics, because you or light maybe, like you end up tumbling around three-dimensional forms a lot. You end up, if you light them, if you light your scenes and whatever, you start taking into consideration uh the way light behaves on different kinds of surfaces. Like you can, like terms like index of refraction, reflection, Fresnel, uh roughness and sheen, like these concepts that might not be as apparent to like people, like it like to people who are pursuing more traditional medium. It's like because so so um I think personally, for example, I noticed that uh like when I picked up 3D mainly because I wanted to try to make animations. I thought it would be a cool thing to start off doing as a hobby, and then I realized that there were industries beyond it. But and like sadly, I don't like, I have a bunch of like animations that are just lying on the shelves, but none of them have ever really been I've never gotten to that point where like I had been able to single-handedly make a short that I thought was good enough to to publish. But then one I noticed that I I picked up sort of I mean, I used to draw a bit like earlier on in my years, but I never really took it that seriously. But then when I started like sketching again, like I found that sort of I developed a kind of intuitive, not saying that it was like 100% correct, but I found that I developed a sort of intuitive understanding of perspective. And then the more I started making connections between, for example, like what I was seeing in my 3D software and what I was trying to put on paper, like the more I found connections relating to, for example, how you would shade a particular object, how light bounces off of surrounding elements, and like concepts like reflected light, for example. I mean, I didn't really know what to call it then, but like it started to show. And I think that one that, like, on a positive note, like, the good thing, I think that yes, 3D has a steep learning curve, and even now, like, because you can also argue that people now maybe are less patient than people were before, right? Like, you could say that,
Yeah.
isn't there a study that shows that, like, the attention spans have been decreasing per generation or something like that? But and that's because, like, people are more and more, like, getting used to not having to exercise that much patience to get anything. But then, so if that's true, then let's say that everybody still goes through the whole process of learning 3D with the same, more or less, level of difficulty relative to how patient they can be. Let's say, um, the one the one good thing about it, like, whether you're a veteran or you're starting out, is that there are, like, you will inevitably become exposed to like, mm, light and light and form as a phenomenon. Like, you just kind of keep seeing it happen, and you're bound to pick up one thing or another, and that can be really advantageous also, no matter what you're trying to do. So maybe uh because I think earlier on we were, I think, even, I don't know if we brought it up in the podcast, but we were talking about it before. And, like, one of the problems is a lot of people end up sort of knowing how to wield the tools, like knowing all of the little configurations of the tool, for example, but not really, um, like, not really being able to employ the tool to create, like, an effective picture, because that,
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is a whole other discipline. But then I think that, it, like, you can learn, I guess, like, there is a lot about, for example, art and design, that's a science, and it can also be, like, if you pay attention maybe to what's happening in your preview renders, and sort of try to think about things that way, like, it could actually benefit you. In fact, there's this one guy that I really admire. Like, he's a he's a YouTuber. Like, he's a digital painter, I think, and a fine artist. But he likes to mention, um oh man, what's his name? But he always, like, I saw a couple of videos where he tries to explain to his students, like, how light behaves by creating blackouts in 3D. And then he'll say, like, okay, so this is what happens when I have a spotlight shining on a sphere, but then this is what happens when I have a spotlight shining on a sphere that's on a plane. And then he'll zoom in on the part of the sphere that's picking up the color of the plane, and then that's how, you kind of see reflective light. And I think that that's, like, a really, really effective tool to learn that sort of thing. And, like, understanding something like that applies to the artistic side too. Even if, like, if you're working in 3D, um like, you become aware that there's reflected light, and then you can do all sorts of things to create, to stylize that. And then if you're working in 2D, like, maybe you just know that you're going to have to add this extra color to the shadow area of whatever it is you're coloring, you're painting or something. So, I mean, I think, like, because for the first half of the conversation, um, like, we were talking about, I guess, the frustrating elements of it, but so to give, uh, yeah, to kind of talk a little bit about the positive aspects, there's definitely a lot that you can sort of it's a great way to kind of get your right brain in on uh, on creative things, on art, I guess, or design or expression. So I mean, yeah, it's not like, I don't know, I guess uh now that we're kind of nearing the end of our episode, having talked about all of these things, would you guys recommend 3D as something uh, to learn? To let's say maybe somebody listening is a student, or or on the young side, and is like thinking about uh, what what they want to really invest their time um, in terms of like visual media. Would you say that, would you recommend 3D, or not?
Probably I'd say that depends on what where you want to go. I mean, yeah, I definitely would recommend. This is a passion, like really, I think, to be passionate about, and it kind of leads you to so many areas possible, that 3D is kind of like a general name for the whole, yeah, for a whole universe. And right now, even it's kind of crossing with different other media as well. So uh, like, for example, you could see, like, in Blender, the 2D tools appearing, mixed with 3D,
Oh
and
yeah.
all these stuffs happening, like different like digital media kind of crossing boundaries. And so generally, if you're kind of artistically keen on making cool things and you want to do them with the computer, I think, yeah, I think 3D is a tool. It's a powerful tool, really. So it's kind of like, yeah, it will eat a lot of your time and effort, but then it will provide you with a tool set that allows it to do so much more than with any other tool in computer graphics. Or you can just do so much more than with any other tool available.
Yeah.
And
This
yeah,
is
once you get a grip on things, you're then able to go to many like digital art places, sort of.
yeah. This is a huge world. 3D.
Yeah,
It's
and I think it's a nice thing that Marco mentioned, the patience thing, that like people right now wanting to get things fast, and the tools are getting kind of in this direction. But then again, like, tools are rapidly changing, but people are not. From what I've experienced, at least, like, people are not really that much changing. At least, like, they may be trained to behave a little bit differently, but their nature sort of stays kind of like, it's adapting really slowly. Uh, so I'm thinking that, yeah, that probably it's a good way uh, to train yourself to be patient, sort of, because even if you can do some things, like parts of the pipeline, faster, and you can get some effects quick, but to really do something complex, like you mentioned, Marco, like a short animated film, for example. Like, these kind of projects are even very often demanding, not single talented artists, but a team of people to be able to pull it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
and and that demands patience, communication, all the same things that were required like 100 years ago, or more, to really create something spectacular in terms of art creation. It always requires patience, where however fast the tools you have, it requires patience. At least that's my. And I'm
Yeah,
also struggling with staying patient. Sometimes with that project that
yeah,
requires
yeah,
longer, yeah, work on it.
yeah,
It's a
for
struggle.
sure.
It's good to choose to try every part of 3D to see if this is your thing, and as long as you enjoy the process and you have something to say, this is important, that you are not learning it for the sake of learning or having a skill that you can sell only. Yeah, so yeah, this it's worth trying. There's a lot of guys on forums who would show one or two works, and then they disappear because they decided that, okay, this is not my language, this is not really, I don't feel free in this area, and I'm going to do maybe something else, or maybe the same thing but with different way. So so at first I would advocate to try as many things as you can, and check if you enjoy the time spent on it. And I've seen works which were the best works are those which don't get old, and the some of the effects or some of the things you can do in 3D, they get old. And if you really want to share something by this work with others, then it will always work. So and also enjoying the process is important. It's
Yeah, and I would say that to complement the Andrew's thing, maybe it's like some things don't get old. Like you still can watch, Stanley Kubrick's Odyssey, the 2000,
yeah.
how it goes, Space Odyssey movie, or like stuff that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
made in the area in the era where there was no computer effects in the cinematography, for example. And the movies are just, even the first Star Wars movie, or there are still good movies up to this day,
Yeah.
even if some
yeah,
effects were seem kind of like old, or maybe for example, like the Lord of the Rings, for example. A lot of super cool CGI, which nowadays might seem kind of like outdated, but then it just fits the movie and fits the mood and stuff. It's just an artistic tool used to convey some kind of a visual message. And yeah, and I would recommend, if you're getting into 3D, just to go the way that's kind of fascinating for you, or like
Yeah,
use
exactly.
it as a tool to get some kind of an effect, or a goal. Like I've heard an interview with, I think, with Blender Guru Andrew Price. He said that he wanted just to make a car in 3D or something like that, and that just drove him to dig into the subject, and he just want to model the car and stuff like that. So me and Andrew probably, it's a usual kind of like, you work as an architect, or you just need a tool to visualize your projects, and you learn the tool to get the thing done. And then, well, then once you learn it, you start learning new areas, and maybe get interested in different areas as well, that you might have not thought of at the beginning, really. Yeah. So if you're interested in, I don't know, making also awesome effects like motion graphics, or I don't know, explosions, or maybe, yeah, just to incorporate some 3D into your footage, like make a lightsaber for your video and become a Jedi. uh,
yeah,
that's a good incentive to really learn the tool. Yeah, because I
Yeah,
found also
I agree.
myself that I've tried learning some skills that I thought might be helpful for me, and until I get this kind of real deal incentive to learn, not just wanting to have the skill for the sake of it. Yeah, it just doesn't work. You need a kind of like an effect that you want to get to motivate
Like a
yourself.
purpose.
You need a goal, like a clear goal. I want to be able to make this, and this, and
Yeah.
that will just help you, stay focused and really even find the way, like what skills you need for that, and because you can't learn all at the same time, so you have to pick a path.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and we haven't even, I think, scratched some of the stuff we were supposed to talk about. So how to make learning faster and going ahead faster. But I mean, those things that enjoy the process and have some inspiring, exciting goal or thing to do with those tools. Finally, I can't wait until I'll show this vision. And so this is great fuel to make it faster and go very, very in a very advanced place, and not just grinding all over the tools. Maybe there are some.
Yeah, for sure.
Finally, recently I've heard of, I saw a like a making of one of the aliens movies, and the guys talked, the screenwriter and the guy who was production designer. They talked about their ideas in this movie, and it was very, very interesting. But at some point they said something about the script, and the screenwriter said, okay, so in this scene there are like 10 guys, and they find those aliens eggs, and some of them during the process of the movie they are going to die. Of course, we will have to, I mean, that starts happening. And he said, okay, so basically the guys who are going to die are those who are there for the money. The only guy who's going to survive is the guy who is really fascinated by this civilization or aliens, something like that. I mean, that was his idea for the script, and you have to eliminate all those movies. There's like death toll, and people just go apart. And yeah, this is exactly the same. And he finally said, yeah, so this is how it is. And he said, yeah, this is how it is in real life. Guys who are there only for the money, they die first. So if you have a inspiration to show something, and you like the process, this is for sure. This is the not only the fastest way to advance, but also maybe I think that the only way to really advance there. Not get burned out, not find yourself grinding or wanting to change completely what you do. This is the difference between those guys who
deep,
learn.
profound stuff. Referencing aliens. Can't think of a better combo. But,
yeah, but there are those practical things, like find yourself as fast as you can around guys who are good in that, who are there, and listen to their feedback, and start to working with them as fast as possible. And also, I remember I worked shortly in a company where there was a fantastic guy who was fantastic in hard surface modeling. This guy was, I mean, it was on such a level that I thought I was good enough to do this, but this guy, I mean, he really had ways to operate on like vertices and to go around some problems with the topology on a level of I don't know, like he had some microscope, and I worked with him like several weeks, and the several weeks I learned more than during a year of watching tutorials. So this is so this is the practical thing. Go there, like take how it's called, like not free job, it's called you are in the company but you're not really an employee yet.
An internship.
Yeah, internship, internship, assistant, be an assistant, go to a course with somebody who's good and really listen to what they're doing. So as you said, you don't reinvent the tool. You can lose a lot of time for that, and don't be shy to be not good in this. Like some guys don't want to admit they are in the first class, like they're starting to learn. Don't be shy that you are there, and so those are those practical things that like clever, smart things to learn faster. Yeah, keeping on the track. Like this first thing I said, it's like it will keep you on the track and give you a lot of energy to go there and at least not, you don't have regret that maybe I was working in this field so too long, for example, or something like that. But those practical tools would be, I mean, now there are video tutorials which show you a lot, but it's working in real life with somebody, being around this person and doing something and getting quick feedback of how to do it, because the whole team has to finish it, and it really counts if you are doing it right or wrong. It really you learn very fast this way. If you are in a place you want to be, then you learn. And even finally like there's a theory about how many hours you need to spend on learning something to finally, even if you don't like something and you do it a lot, you learn, you become at least, you can become maybe not super talented like genius like Albert Einstein of it, but you will be you will be like a specialist, so to make a good decision where to invest this time.
It will pay off, one way or another, I guess, right? Okay, so I think that's all we can cover for now. So once again, that was a really nice conversation, and I think we can call it a day. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.